Ethan Collins had never been the kind of man who sought the spotlight. He was steady, dependable, the kind of person who believed that love wasn't about grand gestures but about showing up, day after day. When he met Claire Peterson in college, she was everything he thought he could never have: smart, ambitious, elegant. Claire wasn't just another student, she was a dreamer with plans written across her notebooks and determination shining in her eyes. She wanted to become a doctor, and Ethan, who had dropped out of business school to support his ailing parents, found himself drawn to her fire. While others dated casually, Ethan knew from the start that Claire was different. At first, their love was simple. They studied in the library together, shared pizza slices in cheap dorm rooms, and took long walks under the campus lights. But as time went on, reality settled in. Claire's medical education was expensive, and her family could not shoulder the financial burden. Scholarships helped, but not enough. That was when Ethan made his silent vow: "I'll carry us through this." The years that followed tested him in ways he had never imagined. Ethan took on grueling work schedules, construction by day, restaurant shifts by night. His hands became calloused, his back ached constantly, but whenever exhaustion threatened to break him, he remembered Claire's words. "Ethan, when I'm a doctor, everything will be different. We'll live in a house by the lake, maybe start a family. You're my forever." Those words were his fuel. While his friends traveled, saved money, or climbed corporate ladders, Ethan poured every spare dollar into Claire's tuition, rent, and books. He cooked meals for her when she came home from long nights of studying, sat quietly beside her when stress consumed her, and cheered her on through exams and clinical rotations. When Claire doubted herself, it was Ethan who steadied her. When she considered quitting, it was Ethan who reminded her of her dream. When she succeeded, it was Ethan who clapped the loudest. And though he sometimes longed for more, a vacation, a car that wasn't breaking down, maybe even a proposal, he told himself that patience was love's truest test. The day Claire graduated from medical school was supposed to be their joint victory. Ethan had taken a day off work, borrowed a suit from a cousin, and sat in the auditorium with pride swelling in his chest. When Claire walked across the stage in her gown, diploma in hand, tears blurred his vision. "That's my girl," he whispered, his heart bursting. That night, they celebrated with friends at a small restaurant. Claire was radiant, the center of attention, everyone praising her accomplishment. At one point, she leaned close to Ethan and whispered, "It's our time now. Everything we dreamed of, it's finally within reach." Ethan believed her. But life in Chicago after her graduation was not what he expected. Claire began her residency at a prestigious hospital. Ethan found warehouse work nearby so they could stay close, though the pay was modest. At first, they were happy enough, sharing a tiny apartment, eating takeout on the couch, laughing about their humble beginnings. Then subtle cracks began to form. Claire started talking about her colleagues: doctors with vacation homes, specialists driving luxury cars, surgeons who spent weekends at country clubs. At first, Ethan thought it was harmless admiration, but soon he noticed the way she compared their lives. "I just wish we didn't always have to budget so tightly," she sighed one evening as she scrolled through her phone. Ethan rubbed her hand gently. "It won't be forever. You're working hard, and once you're fully practicing, we'll get there. I believe in us." But she only gave a thin smile. Weeks passed. Claire became distant. She stayed late at the hospital more often, explaining it away as rounds or research. She bought new clothes, designer brands Ethan knew were beyond their budget. He didn't question her at first, he wanted to trust her. But trust has a way of whispering doubts when silence lingers too long. One evening, Ethan surprised her with dinner. He cooked her favorite meal, lit candles, even bought a small bouquet of flowers despite the dent it left in his wallet. He wanted to remind her of their bond, to rekindle what had begun to fade. But when Claire walked in hours late, dressed in a sleek black dress he had never seen before, she barely glanced at the table. "Sorry, work dinner," she muttered, heading straight to the bedroom. Ethan stood frozen, the candles flickering, food growing cold. The faint smell of cologne, expensive, masculine, unfamiliar, clung to her dress. The truth revealed itself 2 weeks later. Claire sat Ethan down in their living room, her hands folded neatly, her voice steady but detached. "Ethan, I need to be honest. I've met someone." The words felt like a bullet. Ethan's chest tightened, his vision blurred. "Someone," he managed to whisper. "His name is Daniel," she continued. "He's a cardiologist at the hospital. He understands my world in ways you never can. He comes from the same circles, and we're compatible." Ethan stared at her, disbelief mixing with rage and heartbreak. "Claire, after everything I've done, 5 years of sacrifice, supporting you, building a life together, how can you just throw it away?" Her response was like ice water poured on his soul. "You were what I needed then, Ethan. But I've outgrown that life. I want more than struggling bills and late-night shifts. Daniel can give me the lifestyle I deserve. The lifestyle I deserve." The words rang in Ethan's ears long after she walked out the door, suitcase in hand. He sat alone in the apartment that night, staring at the flickering light bulb above him, wondering how love could transform into betrayal so quickly, so brutally. And though his heart was shattered, one thought refused to leave him. "She didn't just leave me, she used me." For weeks after Claire left, Ethan lived in a haze of heartbreak and disbelief. Their apartment felt hollow, every corner haunted by memories. Her coffee mug still sat in the cupboard, her textbooks lined the shelf, her perfume lingered faintly in the air. Each reminder was a knife twist. He replayed her words on a loop. "You were what I needed then. Daniel can give me the lifestyle I deserve." It wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal of the deepest kind. He hadn't merely lost a partner, he had lost 5 years of sweat, sacrifice, and dreams. Some nights, Ethan drowned in anger. Other nights, he crumpled in grief. He avoided calls from friends, skipped shifts, let bills pile up. For a while, he wondered if maybe she was right, that he wasn't enough, that his life would always be defined by struggle. But one evening, sitting on his worn couch, Ethan found an old photograph. It was from Claire's first year in medical school. She was smiling brightly, diploma from a summer program in her hands. And next to her, holding the camera, was Ethan, grinning despite the exhaustion written on his face. He stared at himself in that photo. That young man had believed in someone else's dream so fiercely that he forgot his own. And that was when the shift happened. "I'll never let anyone take my grit again," he thought. "This time, I build for myself." The next morning, Ethan returned to work at the warehouse. But something inside him had changed. He no longer trudged through the day, waiting for time to pass. Instead, he started noticing things: inefficiencies in the way shipments were handled, bottlenecks in communication, outdated systems that slowed productivity. One afternoon, he approached his supervisor. "Listen," he said, showing scribbled notes on a clipboard, "if we reroute the loading schedule by half an hour, we can increase output by almost 20%. And if we switch to barcoding instead of manual logs, we'll save hours every week." At first, the supervisor laughed it off. "Collins, you're just a floor guy. Leave the big ideas to management." But Ethan didn't give up. He refined his ideas, created mock schedules, and even stayed after shifts to test his theories. When a regional manager visited, Ethan seized the chance. He presented his findings confidently, his voice steady despite the nerves. The manager was impressed. "Collins, you've got a sharp eye. Ever thought about moving into management?" That was the beginning of his ascent. Over the next 3 years, Ethan climbed rapidly. He studied logistics part-time at a community college, using every penny he saved. His natural work ethic, combined with his growing knowledge, made him indispensable. He learned to lead teams, negotiate contracts, and streamline operations. By the 5th year, Ethan partnered with a colleague who shared his vision. Together, they launched their own logistics company. It wasn't easy: late nights, financial risks, endless rejections from potential clients. But Ethan had already spent years carrying someone else's dream. Carrying his own was a burden he was willing to bear. Slowly, contracts trickled in. A local retailer here, a manufacturing plant there. Then came the breakthrough: a major distribution deal with a Fortune 500 company. From there, the business snowballed. Ethan, once the warehouse grunt scraping by on overtime shifts, became the CEO of a thriving logistics empire. His company employed hundreds, his income soared into millions, and for the first time, he lived the life he had once thought impossible. But unlike Claire, Ethan never forgot humility. He still drove to his parents' diner on weekends, sitting in the same old booth, greeting truck drivers who remembered him from his waiting days. Success had polished his exterior, but it hadn't hardened his soul. It was at a charity gala, 5 years after Claire had left, that fate decided their paths should cross again. Ethan was invited as a guest of honor. His company had sponsored the logistics for the hospital's fundraising campaign. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, his posture confident, he entered the ballroom under crystal chandeliers. Conversations paused, eyes turned. He wasn't the same man who once begged a fiancée not to leave. And then he saw her. Claire. She stood across the room, clutching a champagne flute. Time had touched her lightly, but there was something in her expression, a weariness, a hollow flicker in her eyes. Ethan noticed quickly. Daniel wasn't beside her. Rumors floated among the guests. The perfect cardiologist husband had been far from perfect, arrogant, unfaithful, their marriage collapsing in bitter divorce. When Claire spotted Ethan, her face drained of color. She hesitated, then walked toward him. "Ethan," she whispered, almost breathless. "It's been a long time." "Yes," he replied, voice calm, controlled. "It has. You look incredible, successful. I always knew you had it in you." Ethan let the words hang in the air. He remembered the long nights, the exhaustion, the betrayal. And yet, instead of anger, he felt only clarity. "Funny," he said with a faint smile. "You didn't seem to think so back then." Claire bit her lip. "I made mistakes. I see that now. Daniel wasn't what I thought. But you've become everything I hoped for. Maybe we could." But Ethan raised his hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "No, Claire, you made your choice. I built my life without you. And I don't look back." Her eyes glistened, but Ethan didn't linger. He turned and walked away, greeted warmly by investors and partners who now respected him for the man he had become. Epilogue and moral. Ethan's story spread like wildfire among those who knew him. It wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption. He learned that sacrifice means nothing if it erases you. He proved that the best revenge isn't anger, but success. And most of all, he discovered that true worth is never defined by someone else's approval. Claire had once chosen wealth over loyalty. Ethan chose grit, resilience, and self-belief. And in the end, he didn't just win back his pride. He built a legacy that no betrayal could ever take away.